Hi everybody. So this is the first video to go with section 11. This is writing equations in slope-intercept form. And our first problem is going to be find an equation for the line going through 0, -3 with a slope of 3/4. Let's think about what we learned about slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. And m is always our slope, and b is always the y value of the y-intercept. So in essence, you have to ask yourself two questions. Do I have slope, and do I have the y-intercept? Well, absolutely we have slope. So I know m is 3/4. And do I have the y-intercept? Well, how do we know if we have the y-intercept? The y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. So the fact that we have x equals 0 means that this 0, -3 is our y-intercept. So do I have the pieces I need to create the equation of this line? I absolutely do. The equation of this line is going to be y equals 3/4 x minus 3. Why is it minus 3? Because again, 0b is our y-intercept, so -3 is our b value. Let's try another one. Find an equation for the line going through 0, 6, and -2, 1. Ask yourself the same two questions. Do I have do I have slope, and do I have the y-intercept? Always ask slope first. So do I have slope? Unfortunately, the answer right now is no. But do I have enough information to find slope? I do, because I know that slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Slope is the change in y over the change in x. So now let's assign our x1, y1, and our x2, y2. Let's call this point x1, y1. Remember, it doesn't matter. And let's call this point x2, y2. And now it's just a matter of substitution. So this is going to be 1 minus 6 over -2 minus 0. Then we do the math. 1 take away 6 is -5. -2 take away 0 is -2. But what's a negative divided by a negative? It is a positive, and so this slope is going to be positive 5/2. So now, do I have slope? Yes, I can answer yes to that question. Do I have the y-intercept? Well, remember, the y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. So again, I can spot the y-intercept. The y-intercept is going to be 0, 6. So I know that m is 5/2. I know that the y-intercept is 0, 6, which is always 0b. So that tells me that b is 6. And now I'm going to plug it into y equals mx plus b. So this is going to be y equals 5 halves x plus 6. Okay, hopefully it's so far so good. So now let's see how we can do this if we were given a graph. Can we take a graph and come back and find the equation? So let's make a quick graph here. So let's say our graph looks like this. So first things first, we need to pick out some obvious ordered pairs. So I see this as an ordered pair, and I see this as an ordered pair. So this time I'm going to count my slope because we know that slope can be rise over run. So I can count it this time, rise over run. To walk from left to right, I'm going to go down 3, which we know down is shown by a negative. And I'm going to walk over 5. So that tells me that my slope is negative 3/5. Do you visibly see the y-intercept here? Absolutely. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. So I can see the y-intercept here. And so the equation for this line will be y equals negative 3/5 x plus 3. So personally, I think that graphically is probably the easiest. Now let's do our last situation, which is how you. So let's say you had a table of values x and f of x. And the table of values that you had was negative 1, 4, 0, 6, 2, 10. Well, first things first, I need to make sure that this is in fact linear. How do I know if a table is linear? Well, that goes back to our linear or not video. I need to see if our rate of change stays the same. So this is a change of 1. This is a change of 2. This is a change of 2. This is a change of 4. The numbers do not look the same, but remember, slope is the change in y over the change in x. So we want to know if 2 to 1, the change in y over the change in x, is the same as 4 to 2. Well, when you work both of these out, you do get the same change. You get a slope of 2. And so not only can I say, yeah, now I know this is linear, I also just figured out that the slope is 2. Do I also know the y-intercept? I have the y-intercept because the y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. And so I can go right into the equation y equals mx plus b and say the equation here is y equals 2x plus 6. If you wanted to verify that this table comes from this equation, could you just plug in those x values and make sure that you get those outputs? You absolutely can. So you've got lots of different ways out here, lots of different techniques to check your work. Okay, let's see if we can go the other way. Let's say that I have y equals 1/2 x minus 4. Can we extract the important information here and then, excuse me, go straight to the graph? Well, this is my slope. So my slope is going to be up 1 and to the right 2. Because again, slope is always interpreted as rise over run when you're talking about counting spots on a graph. And I know that the y-intercept will be 0, negative 4, because negative 4 is my b value. So I could just go to the graph and say, all right, I know I'm starting at 0, negative 4. I always need a starting point. So this is my starting point. So negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4. I know that that's my starting point. I can put a dot there. And according to my slope, my directions, I'm going to go up 1 and to the right 2. So from here, I'm going to walk up 1 and to the right 2. And I could do it again, up 1 and to the right 2. And you can keep going if you want, but you do have enough points. And I would use a straight edge to connect the dots. Okay, last but not least, can we go full circle with an equation that is not in y equals mx plus b form and still do this entire process? So I have 3x plus 4y equals 12. I need first to solve for y. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. Remember that you want to keep the variable first so that it looks like y equals mx plus b. So you want the x to be first, the variable to be first. And then divide everything by 4 here to get rid of the 4. And this will give us y equals negative 3/4 x plus 3. What information can I extract from this? I know that my slope should be negative 3/4, or in other words, going down 3 and to the right 4. And I know that my y-intercept should be 0, 3. So can I use that information to plot this, even though it wasn't in y equals mx plus b form to start? So I have 0, 3. Just going to do my increments so I know where I'm walking here. And then I'm going to go down 3 and to the right 4. So from here, I'm going to walk down 3 and to the right 4. And down 3 and to the right 4. And you don't have to go out more than once or twice, but you can if you want. And then using a straight edge, you would connect those dots. And now I know that that would be the line that goes with that equation. Then to try to tie it all back together with what we learned previously, this is my y-intercept, 0, 3. This is my x-intercept, 4, 0. Could I take my original equation, 3x plus 4y equals 12, and find the two intercepts to make sure that this is all the same? Sure. If I take 3x plus 4y equals 12, and I do the work for the y-intercept and for the x-intercept, the y-intercept occurs when x equals 0. The x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. I'm going to plug 0 in for x to show this work. I get 4y equals 12. Divide by 4. And I get y equals 3. Here, the x-intercept occurs when y equals 0. So wherever I see y, I'm going to plug 0 in. The 0 makes that go away, and I have 3x equals 12. Divide both sides by 3, and I have x equals 4. Remember, this is not the y-intercept. The y-intercept is 0, 3. And this is not to the x-intercept. The x-intercept is the full ordered pair. So when x is 4, y is 0. So it'd be the point 4, 0. And that does, in fact, match the points that we got up here. So again, all of this should come full circle. We're not really learning anything that's separate from the stuff that we learned previously. And the last thing that I wanted to do in this video is address what happens with vertical and horizontal lines. So let's say we have a vertical line going through -3 on the x-axis. It doesn't have a y-intercept. That's important to note. There's no y-intercept. So that means that it's not that it's 0, okay? It's not that it's any kind of value. It doesn't exist. It doesn't cross the y-axis. So already that's troubling, okay? The other thing is that if I was going to do rise and run, which this is in a previous video, there is no run. And so when I try to do rise over run, my run is going to be 0. Am I ever allowed to divide by 0? Absolutely not. And so my slope is undefined. Not to mention, we know that a vertical line is not a function. So if you put all of that together, this can't possibly have a y equals equation. The equation that this is going to have is going to be x equals -3, because all this is telling you is that x is always -3. And if you were to create a table of all of these points, you would see a table that looks just like one in a previous video, -3, 0, -3, 1, -3, 2, and so on, because the x is always -3. So I hope this makes sense. I hope you can see how everything gets used and put all together. And I will see you in the next video. Have a great day.